Yo, Aston the Moto Guy here in my own garage today. It's a little bit too cold to be working on bikes, so I figured I would just talk about some of the bikes I keep around, why I keep them around, how I got them, that kind of thing. Over here we have a 1978 Yamaha IT250. It was originally a dual sport bike that was kind of also a competition style enduro bike. It uses a very similar engine to the same era YZ250. It's a two-stroke. I fired it up a little bit earlier just to see how easy it would start in 40-degree weather. Started pretty easily and proceeded to fishbowl just about the whole neighborhood. It smokes a lot until it's warmed up, and then the smoke there's not as much smoke, but there's probably something wrong with it, but it still runs well. I still ride it. Not every chance I get, but occasionally I get a hankering for going and riding a dirt bike. And so that's why I keep a dirt bike around. I think everybody should have a dirt bike. Dirt bikes are fantastic. It's a great way to learn how to ride a motorcycle without playing in traffic. And it always blows my mind when I meet guys who ride sport bikes and they say things like, "I'm just not really into dirt bikes, man." And I'm like, well, you're missing out on a huge part of what makes motorcycling great and awesome. And that one, I picked it up really cheap. That bike was just a couple $100. I bought it from a guy named Travis Newbold. If you've been around motorcycles for any length of time here in Colorado, you've probably heard that name. I proceeded to do a ton of work to it. It has an oversized fuel tank on it. It has new tires, new chain, new sprockets that have pretty low hours on them too, if I'm being honest. I haven't ridden that bike. I just don't ride it as much as I should. Renthal bars, has kind of a fancy throttle. I use these little shorty levers. The brakes are actuated with cables, which is fun. It's not a hydraulic system at all. The brakes on that bike are terrible, but it's a ton of fun to ride and race. I race vintage hair scrambles on it very occasionally. I haven't done that in years, although I've thought about getting back into it a little bit. We'll see how this summer shakes out. Next up, I have my 2006 Kawasaki Ninja 650. That bike I bought thinking I was gonna just turn it into a street bike and ride it around on the street. And come to find out, I really couldn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish with the street bike. I had to go and do track days and then eventually get my racing license and start racing with the MRA, which is the Motorcycle Road Racing Association. That's our local club here in Colorado. Unless you want to go to Texas or unless you want to go to Utah, that's pretty much what we have to work with here in Colorado. So say what you want about that club. They do a good job putting on racing events. Just don't pay attention to the bullshit politics that people like to swing around, and a lot of big egos in motorcycle road racing too, so that's a thing. I'm not exempt at all. But this bike, it uses MV Agusta fairings. The tail section is from a Honda RS125, and then there's a custom-made aluminum subframe back there that let me cut about 50 pounds of weight off of it. This bike weighs 350 pounds dry. I crashed the ever-living hell out of it earlier this year, 2024. First race, first round. It was cold as hell outside. The wind was kicking, and I just thought that my tires were going to stick. Tires did not stick. The bike switched ends, yeeted my ass over the bars. I thought I was going to die. This hand doesn't work exactly right anymore, but it works good enough for what I do. So trying to avoid any more crashes like that with any luck, although it's kind of inevitable. If you're going to race motorcycles, you're going to end up crashing them. That's just a part of it. Hopefully you have a body that can take a fall, that can take a hit. Otherwise you'll get hurt. People do get hurt all the time. I'm just really lucky that I've managed to escape any kind of serious injury. That bike's a lot of fun. It's really underpowered though. It's not, I'll stand over here. It's not really competitive in the lightweight twins class unless you're racing other people on kind of older generation stock motor 650 twins. You will get your ass beat by Aprilia RS660s. Those bikes make damn near middleweight horsepower, which is crazy that Aprilia does that. It's basically like a race bike for the street, and they cook head gaskets, and I watched a bunch of people in 2023, they were putting new head gaskets on their bikes, getting new engines like halfway through the season, so that's cost prohibitive for a lot of people. Anyway, once I get that bike back together, it'll be for sale. And then after I crashed it, I needed another bike to race because that was going to take too long to put back together. So I picked up this. This is a 2009 Kawasaki ZX6R. It has all of the cool guy racing stuff on it, Olin shocks, stainless lines. I don't know what's done in the forks, but I suspect something. The forks work really well for what they are. I've also heard that the stock forks on these bikes work really well for what they are, so who knows what's inside of there. It took me a while to get up to speed on this thing. A bike with double the horsepower that you're used to, there's a learning curve to figuring out how to ride something like that. So it took me a good 3 rounds, probably 20-25 hours on the bike before I started putting the pieces together. I had to read some books about survival to kind of recalibrate my brain and get a different approach to racing motorcycles because I really didn't want to get hurt like badly. And I find the more effort I put into thinking about what I'm doing, the better things tend to work out. This bike is a ton of fun though. I couldn't ask for a better race bike, like at all. It's been terrific. I'll race it next year. And yeah, I look forward to that. I look forward to that every winter. I mean, it's freezing out here. Y'all probably can't tell, but it's cold. It's like 40 degrees, which is cold enough. So last but not least is my favorite bike in this garage. It's a 2002 Kawasaki ZX7R, another Kawasaki Ninja. I have 3 Kawasaki Ninjas. I'm a pretty big fan of Kawasaki's. They're a little bit cheaper than the Yamahas, and people tend to sell them a little bit cheaper. They're not as desirable, but I think they work just as well as anything else. But yeah, that is an old vintage superbike. Or from the superbike era, the AMA superbike era, if you're old enough to remember that. Old enough to remember guys like Scott Russell and Anthony Gobert going really fast on them. It was not the best bike of its era by any stretch of the imagination, but these days it's a classic sport bike that you just don't see around anymore. And in this condition, these things are actually pretty rare. You can tell by this license plate holder that's stock and uncut. The fashion used to be to pull that off first thing, install these things called tail tidies, make your street bike look more like a race bike. Fast forward 20 years, and now nobody really wants them unless it has the stock bodywork, stock mirrors, stock indicators, stock rear fender. They want them as stock as possible. And this one's not totally stock. It has rear sets on it, has stainless lines, it has all the maintenance up to date, but all of the bodywork is factory. It's not perfect bodywork. This bike has been down. Previous owner crashed it, or maybe even the owner before that. I have no idea how many owners it's had. All I know is it works great. It starts easily enough when it's 40-50 degrees outside. It starts really, really well from 60 to 80 degrees or so. It's never let me down. I put a ton of work into that bike too. I had to clean and rebuild the carburetors. I jetted them for altitude. I had to do a valve adjustment on it, so the cams had to come off and then back in. And now it's a terrific street bike, and I really enjoy owning it. This is probably the bike that I'd be least likely to get rid of, followed by this guy, at least for now. Still enjoying that. That's going to be up for sale come spring 2025. Somebody will get a killer deal on that. It'll make a really good track day bike, really good lightweight twins race bike for somebody who just wants to get out there and isn't concerned with like winning every race that they enter, which quite frankly, that's most of us. We're just out there trying to have fun, trying to improve our skills, trying to get faster. And then that dirt bike, I'll always have a dirt bike. I love dirt bikes. If you're interested in racing, probably the best way to do it is with the MRA, the Motorcycle Road Racing Association. Just don't get on their Facebook page, don't pay any attention to the politics, just show up with your bike, figure it out, send people emails asking the questions that you need answers to get a bike out there. The racing's a hell of a lot more fun than talking about racing on Facebook or talking about board politics and shit. Like, who cares? The people running the club are doing the best that they can. And they provide a racing opportunity, an opportunity to go fast on your sport bike and compete with other guys who want to go fast on their sport bikes. Guys and girls, it's not just guys. So yeah, that's all I got. Hopefully this was instructive, entertaining, who knows. I don't shoot a lot of videos, so we'll just have to see how it works out. But yeah, next time maybe I'll be able to do some mechanical work for y'all. That's what I really enjoy doing. It's just too fucking cold right now, man. I'm like. Anyway, I'll throw this up on YouTube. We'll see where it goes. Thanks a bunch. Thanks for watching. Bye.